Good evening. Yarmouth Select Board, December 10th, 2024, 6 p.m., Yarmouth Town Hall, Hearing Room 1146, Route 28, South Yarmouth, Mass. Per Massachusetts General Law, all town and school boards, committee, and authorities shall post a notice of every meeting at least 48 hours in advance of the meeting. This is to formally advise that as required by MGL Chapter 30A, Sections 18 to 25, and pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on June 16, 2021, as extended by Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, the Yarmouth Select Board will hold a public meeting on Tuesday, December 10, 2024, at 6 p.m. in the hearing room, Yarmouth Town Hall, 1146 Route 28, South Yarmouth, Mass. 02664. The public is welcome to attend either in person or via the alternative public access provided on the town website. I'd ask you all to join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to the Yarmouth Select Board meeting. We'll start with, do we have any announcements for this evening?
I have no announcement.
I do have one. Let me get the mic around so that this will go out on the recording. It's good news, not quite Santa Claus brings you something great news, but good news. The power supply rates for the Cape Light Compact for the January 2025 until July 1st, 2025 period have gone down. That's very unusual for rates that are starting in the winter. So anyway, the rate now is 12.024 cents a kilowatt hour. That's for the regular service, and that beats out even Eversource's cheapest rate of 13.347. There are also two options. If you would like to help renewable power supply, there's a 50% local green rate where you pay a differential, and that 50%, the amount from the renewable power that's necessary by the state mandate from the renewable portfolio, it's more than the amount of renewable energy purchased that's from renewable energy sources. And that, with the rate that's the green rate and the 50%, that additional up to 50% between the basic requirement and up to 50% is all purchased from renewable energy sources in Massachusetts. Then there's 100% green power, local green, and that's 15.624 cents a kilowatt hour. So 100% local green, 15 cents in some, 50% local green, 13 cents in some, but already above the required minimum by the state is 12.024 cents, and that's the basic residential rate with the compact. So we're really pleased.
Good news, Joyce. Good news. Thank you. Public comments. Do I have anyone here present who has any public comments today? Kurt?
Kurt Sears, for those who don't know. Last night's meeting was horrible, to be nice about it. Unfortunately, Ken lost control of the whole thing. People who apparently show up at town meeting don't know how to behave at town meeting or whatever. There's a comment made about the stormwater,
But they should have.
and there's no stormwater in the system. And if we get a flood that is that bad, that's going to affect that pump station, we got way bigger problems than a pump station. I am a little bothered that we're going forward with something we don't even have an easement on yet. And again, There was something said wrong and some things unsaid last night, which is unfortunate, but, one person made a comment, why don't we put this pump station here? Well, the basic rules of plumbing is hot's on the left, cold's on the right, and it flows downhill. So pump stations need to be at low points, otherwise you're gonna be digging very, very, very deep to put a pump station in a high spot, and it makes the pumps larger and more expensive to do that also. So people need to keep those kind of things in mind when trying to understand why a pump station or some part of a system is put where it's put. And I hope you don't cave in on it. As long as the easement gets straightened out, I think the pump station should stay where it is. But I've never heard of anybody trying to threaten the bog, take the bog, anything else. Again, a lot of stuff was said last night that should not have been said because it wasn't true. I hope people keep that in mind.
Thank you, Kurt.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Select Board. Thank you very much. Tom Nicanel, Precinct 3. I'm just here tonight to share a couple of things with my counterpart, or used to be my chairman, Mr. DeYoung, which is on our agenda tonight. Steve is, for 20 years, twice a month, it's like 3,500 applications the man has done. And he's done good by our town. He's treated everybody fairly. I'm not too sure what the S in the middle of Stephen DeYoung is, but maybe it's Sly, because that's what he's good at. But Mr. DeYoung did an outstanding job for being a volunteer on our committee. As you know, our volunteers are very few and far, and our town is run by committees. We just happened to lose another committee member to be select board member. So now we have to find another committee member. And I think it's in the selectmen's purview to have 2 alternates, according to the bulletin, to replace the now select board member, which if you're a select board member, you cannot be on another committee. So, but I think there is a way to fill that slot until the next election. I also want to make a comment that yesterday was another great volunteer committee member, Board of Appeals. If anybody remembers Bob Palmer, he would have been 89 yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairwoman
Do we have anyone else here in the room?
Marcus, might I just correct a misstatement there?
Sure.
I just wanted to let everybody know, Liz Argo, your new select person, I will be staying on Old Kings Highway Committee as well. So just to, so that will not be an empty position. Thank you.
Okay, I see Vita Morris's hand up. Vita, good evening.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
I can indeed.
All right. I want to go back to last night's meeting. I could not believe what the town moderator did when the man from the Stop and Shop wanted to speak. Suddenly he got very technical about having the person having to be a resident and a voter in Yarmouth. This is the man representing the most aggrieved group over that whole mess of the plastics, and considering how the whole situation was going there last night, the back and forth that people, nobody answered the questions directly at all when asked several times, and perhaps this man could have given some really good information, and for the town moderator to get suddenly very technical about it, I could not believe that he did that. I think he owes an apology to this man, and I'm surprised that nobody tried to correct the moderator during the whole meeting. It's a disgrace.
Thank you, Vita. Do we have anyone else on Zoom? No. I don't see any other hands up. Okay, we're going to be moving on to our next agenda item. We heard some words already about Stephen DeYoung, recognition tonight of his volunteer service. Karen, do you have a few words you would like to say?
Sure. Karen Green, Director of Community Development. Steve is not able to attend tonight's meeting. He's, I think, down in Florida. And he did want to relay his thank you for this special recognition. I'll echo Tom's comments. Steve's been an amazing volunteer. He's been here as long as, many, many years on the planning board, on the zoning board of appeals. He ran a great meeting, and he did a super job listening to everybody. He had, hard applications, easy applications. I think he always made people feel welcome, and he was a great, great with his fellow board members too, because, when you've been here for 35 years or something like that, you see a lot of other people come and go. And ZBA in particular and planning board are not easy volunteer jobs. So he was always very helpful with new people. But Steve says, I wish I was there to accept this honorarium. Please thank the select board in absentia. So clearly Steve's words.
Well, I'd like to read this into the record. We have Town of Yarmouth Select Board official citation. Be it known that the Town of Yarmouth hereby recognizes Stephen S. DeYoung on his generous contributions as volunteer. And be it further known that the Town of Yarmouth extends its sincerest thanks and appreciation for his tireless commitment to and participation within the community for more than 35 years. Wow. His dedication as a board member on the Planning Board and on the Zoning Board of Appeals, many years during which he held the chair position, is especially noted, as well as his extensive knowledge, diplomacy, and respect for applicants from all walks of life. This citation is duly signed by the Vice Chair, Yarmouth Select Board, on this 10th day of December in the year of our Lord, 2024. Steve, in absentia, thank you so much. You really and truly have been a true and dedicated volunteer in this town. And we already just recently accepted with regret, but our great thanks, your resignation from the Board of Appeals. Would any of the other select board members like to say something about this?
Yes. I had the fortune over a decade ago of serving with Steve on the planning board for many years, and he served with great honor. And he took over when David Reed was no longer on the Board of Appeals, and those were some pretty big shoes to fill. And he's done a remarkable job. And I just want to personally thank him for being such a great board member and somebody to serve with, and for all of his years that he's dedicated to Yarmouth, and to thank his family as well, because we all know when we serve, the family serves along with them. So thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. We wish you well. You're in a good place there in Florida. Joyce?
I'd just like to say, I was in the room one time when there was extremely contentious behavior, and Steve handled it like a pro. Good for you, Steve.
Thank you, and enjoy your warm climate down there in Florida. Okay, moving on our next item on the agenda, we have two proclamations today.
Was she going to say anything about Steve?
Who?
I thought Karen was going to speak.
Karen did. No, Karen. Did you want to say anything else, Karen?
No. No, but I'm happy to help get the citation off to Steve, and we'll actually also share it with the Board of Appeals, who I think will be recognizing Steve and thanking him again on Thursday.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, the first proclamation that we have is for Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. Whereas in the annals of American history, only a few events are so well known and so deeply rooted in national remembrance that the mere mention of their date suffices to describe them. Of these occurrences, none could have had more significance for our nation than December 7th, 1941. And whereas on that Sunday morning, 83 years ago, the Imperial Japanese Navy launched an unprovoked surprise attack upon the United States forces stationed at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. This attack claimed the lives of 2,403 Americans, wounded 1,178 more, and damaged our naval capabilities in the Pacific. And whereas every honor is appropriate for the courageous Americans who made the supreme sacrifice for our nation at Pearl Harbor and in the many battles that followed in World War II, their sacrifice was for a cause not for conquest, for a world that would be safe for future generations. Their devotion must never be forgotten. Now, therefore, we, the Select Board of the Town of Yarmouth, Massachusetts, do hereby announce and proclaim December 7th, 2024, as National Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day in Yarmouth, and we call upon its citizens to observe this occasion with appropriate ceremonies and activities. We were able to provide this proclamation at the ceremony that was held at Smuggler's Beach. For those of you who were not able to attend that day, it was a very moving ceremony, and we even had in attendance one of the actual veterans of World War II who was there. So my thanks to the Yarmouth Rotary Club and to the organizers of the event. The second proclamation we have is for Wreaths Across America Day. Whereas Wreaths Across America's year-long mission is to remember the fallen, honor those who serve, and teach the next generation the value of freedom, since its inception in Maine 32 years ago, the program has grown to include more than 3 million volunteers, a third of whom are children, and over 4,600 ceremonies in every United States state and territory on the second Saturday of December. And whereas today we honor the men and women of Yarmouth who, since our town's founding, have answered the call to serve their country in defense of freedom, whether they have reached their final resting place or are standing here today, we can never forget their sacrifice. For this we say thank you, and we are honored to be among you. Now, therefore, we, the Select Board of the Town of Yarmouth, Massachusetts, do hereby announce and proclaim December 14th, 2024, as Wreaths Across America Day in Yarmouth, and we call upon its citizens to observe this occasion with appropriate ceremonies and activities. Both very well-deserved. And speaking in this proclamation about men and women of Yarmouth who have served since our town's founding, we actually will have the Historic Commission here today to talk to us about that as well. Thank you very much. Do we need an motion on that for the proclamations?
Don't
No?
think so.
Okay. Moving on, we come to the next item, which is reorganization of the Select Board positions. I will be happy to accept any nominations.
Paper to write it down. I hate not having paper. Well, usually somebody jumps in pretty quick.
Do I have any nominations for the chair?
I will nominate Dorcas if she's interested.
Do I have a second on that nomination?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Any discussion first? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Moving on to the vice chair. I would like to make a nomination to nominate Tracy Post as vice chair.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And I believe on our other board positions,
I'd like to nominate Mark as clerk.
we have a second on that?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I think that takes care of the board positions that we needed to do tonight? Or do we need to go through the entire list?
I'm very comfortable, Madam Chair, if you're acceptable and the other members are acceptable, just to sort of endorse the others that are on the list. Now, I know typically what we do as a common practice is the newbie on the board usually gets the position of being the appointments chair.
Oh, no.
And I hate to break that to you, Joyce. But my only exception would be that we, for the rest of the current assignments, that we keep the current assignments the same, with the exception of the appointments chair. And again, we're following tradition, past practice, which has been for the new member of the board. So that would mean Liz Argo, our new member of the board, would be the appointments chair. And you want a dissent. And then what we would,
We've had co-chairs before.
we've had co-chairs before. Would you like,
co-chairs.
is that acceptable for both?
You wanted, I know you've got your plate full with Old Kings Highway and all, but
It's,
As a point of reference, the charter prohibits you from serving on an elected or appointed board.
even though I checked with the Ethics Committee?
It's our town charter.
Oh, okay, I did check.
Now, I think that
just read
there's,
it, just to
there's
make
a
sure.
question as to whether the Old Kings Highway is a regional office.
Correct.
And
state charter.
so we sent that up to town council, and town council provided an opinion that says that that's a regional body, and under the town's charter, she's not prevented from holding
It's
that
elected
office.
by Yarmouth. It's not elected
No,
by a region. I'm reading it. It says, "No selectman shall hold any other elected town office." It's not a DY school district.
It's not a town office, I think is what Bob's saying. It's a
I'm
regional
just saying,
office.
that's what the town council opinion I saw said.
There might be some value in double checking on that, because it would be an issue. I mean, the DY Regional School Committee is a regional school committee, and that's generally hasn't been accepted in the past.
Fine with me. Of course, I have no,
No, I just think it's worth just getting that. I hear what council has said, but again, this is how we've come down on things in the past, particularly like a regional school committee. That's not just a Yarmouth board, that is a two-town board, and it's been an issue in the past with the school committee, so I don't understand why it wouldn't be a concern with respect to a board like this.
We determined that that was a regional committee because I was appointed at one point in time to serve as the school committee because it wasn't a town office.
So we've covered this before then, so that argument doesn't hold then.
Well, I don't think that Old Kings Highway is the same.
maybe we
They're not.
should just wait and see.
Well, my only thing is that I don't care what you do, I just wouldn't want any of your decisions to be challenged. And that's what it comes down to. So I think, perhaps they don't know what the town charter says. They're going off of state law, but it definitely is something you should look into.
So all I'm saying is that I just think it's worth double checking.
Should we then co-chair to clear that up?
I love the co-chair idea. I
That
think
would
that's
clear
great.
this problem up.
Okay,
Okay, so,
that would work, because I only got 5 months. Just saying.
Okay.
Love it.
so that's the slate then. So all of the other positions that we currently hold, so for example, Tracy would still continue as the licensing board chair. You and Liz would be the appointments co-chairs. We also have the ambulance waiver administrative post. That's Dorcas's assignment. The rep for the rep DY liaison, the primary rep for DY is Tracy. DY contract negotiations team is Tracy. And the scholarship committee rep, that's Tracy. I would continue to serve on the Affordable Housing Trust. Dorcas would be as the alternate airport rep. Now, the last time around, we put on hold the Mattakey Middle School Building Committee person, and so what I would suggest is that we vote on all the others and then revisit the Mattakeys to see whether or not it's appropriate to make an appointment or assignment on that. I currently serve as the town's rep on the Clean Water Trust Board, and I enjoy that, and I'm interested in continuing that. Public Access Media Center, Joyce Flynn is our rep with that group. Bob Lawton serves as our rep on the RTA. Our MPO DY section rep is Peter Q. Smith, and our Cape Cod Commission rep is Dennis Prebenson. So I would recommend that as a board that we adopt all of those proposed assignments.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Now, with the respect to the Mattakey Middle School Building Committee rep, Madam Chair, I would just want to ask the administrator is if this is an assignment that we should act on tonight, or is that something that we can wait on and defer?
No, I think that the purpose for that committee has ended,
Okay,
so we don't need an appointment tonight.
okay, very good. That-
Oh,
That answers my question.
right, so we'll take that one off the list. Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to our next agenda item, we have members here from the Historic Commission will be joining us to talk about a discussion and vote of a proposed location for Revolutionary War Monument. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say, gentlemen. I turn the floor over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and Select Board members. The last time we were here, we spoke about a Revolutionary War monument for 453 participants, but we did not have a location, and so we're back with a proposed location, and we want to go through the process to explain that we looked at 3 locations. There was a place called Liberty Hill, which is on the corner of 6A and
Summer Street.
not Summer,
Willow
Willow.
Street.
Willow, which is now a private residence. So that is out. Then we looked at the Yarmouth Port Green, and the Yarmouth Port Green is centrally located, but having sat out there in a tent last September during a driving rainstorm, I noticed that when it rains, there's a virtual river that runs through that park. Also, I know that there are already some monuments on that park, and anyhow, we thought that we would also look at Thatcher Park, which is the playground, which is also located on 6A. And that seems to be a place where the original meeting house was there. It was a place of drill for the Revolutionary War participants, the Congregational Church, as I mentioned, and we thought that that was a more appropriate place to secure the monument. And what you see on the screen are 2 possible locations that it could go. It can't go in the front by 6A because there are already 3 monuments there. 2 that denote the park itself, and 1 that is a single monument to a person who died in World War II, William L. Mielix. Was killed November 16th, 1944, and is buried in Alsace-Lorraine, France, near the German border. In 1951, the town appropriated $375 to erect 3 monuments to soldiers that died in Alsace-Lorraine: William Mielix, David Eric Baker, and Carol Adams de Silva. And it was, I guess, petitioned by the Yarmouth American Legion Post 197 and the Planning Board, through Clause 12, Section 5, Chapter 40, and the Finance Committee recommended $375 for this. The warrant was passed at town meeting, and the monuments were erected in 1951. In case anybody's interested why a single individual is buried, the single individual is William Mielix. The other two, for instance, for your information, David Eric Baker is in West Yarmouth at the junction of Route 28 in Maine, and Carol Adams de Silva is in the triangle at the junction of the bypass and Main Street in Bass River. I'm not quite sure where that is. So our recommendation is in the back on the triangle. It's beyond the basketball courts, and it's an area that's little used. The other place that would be not too obstructive would be over on the left-hand side. And we thought that it would be a good idea if the select board made the decision on where they thought it should be.
Okay, does anyone on the board have any questions?
Just what's in that back area now? It's covered. Is it
There's
shrubbery?
a few trees, but other than that, there's nothing back there.
There are three
sorry.
stones there that are just part of the landscaping. They're not marked. There's a water spigot on a post, but that's it. It's,
And the monument will be just the monument, or do you plan on, I mean, I'm thinking, you know, there's not a lot of parking in this area, which is an issue. I like the side area because if you had a gathering, it's more visible, I guess. But I don't know what the overall town's plan is, or if there are any plans for this particular park at all. I think we should make sure before we make a decision. Does anybody know of any town plan on this parcel?
Bob, do you know of any town plan that we have for this
No, and
parcel?
I do know that Community Development Department sort of assisted with all of these materials, and I think that they were very supportive of the locations.
Did they have a preference, or was it not discussed?
No, we didn't discuss a preference, but I think that this was, out of the three sites, the one that was preferred somewhere in the park.
Yeah, I mean, I like the visibility of the side, but in the back, it gives us more flexibility if there were any redevelopment plans in the future. It's kind of set aside, so I don't really have a strong feeling one way or the other, but those are my thoughts. And I appreciate all the work that you've done. I think this is an appropriate place for it based on what you just spoke of, the other memorial that is there. And,
All the activity was in the north side at this period of time. There was very little going on in the south side of Yarmouth. So,
Mark?
Yeah, thank you. I want to thank you for your work on this. Would you have any objection if we just posted this for a 30-day comment to invite people to respond to the board, or is there a sense of urgency in terms of making this decision?
there is a bit of a sense of urgency. The stone will require anywhere from 6 to 8 months to procure.
I see.
The town of Yarmouth, I'm not quite sure of the exact date in June, but I think it's June 26th, 1776, where the town of Yarmouth declared independence. And that's kind of like our timeline. We're very tight. We were hoping to get an RFP out before Christmas. And then because there's a certain vetting process that could take a few months and getting it ready before town meeting. If we miss this town meeting vote, we're going to miss the timeline. We'll have to come up with something else. But we're completely cognizant that people need to weigh in on this, so.
So what's your answer? I think normally there's some value in having, a little bit of time to do further due diligence and to invite the public to speak to this. But I respect your concern as well, that, we're on a very tight time frame and that could be a problem. So that's why I asked you the question, to get your guidance, your recommendations.
We're supposed to go in front of the CPC next week.
I see.
They required a location before they would make any ruling.
Got it. You answered my question. Thank you.
Joyce?
I think then that I would go along with Mr. Kelly's view for the placement, and also with his timetable, because it does seem we want to get this in as soon as possible, and that there's this cascade of deadlines that if the stone isn't ordered, but we have to have the site so they can figure the design. I just picture us missing this annual town meeting, and that would be a shame. So let's hurry.
Liz?
I think it's going to be a fabulous addition. I grew up across the street from a Civil War monument in New Orleans, and it was such a part of my upbringing, and I don't think it matters a whole lot, but maybe the side position, only because the middle of the playground is more used, and therefore it would be a little bit more visible to the children, and they might be curious as to what this monument is all about. And it certainly was a part of my education, because that's how I learned about the Civil War.
So, Madam Chair, I'd like to move that the Board of Selectmen endorse the recommendation of Thatcher Park, AKA the Yarmouthport Playground, as the site for the Revolutionary War Monument.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any specific point in the park? Or we can leave it to the historic?
I think we're basically following their recommendations.
Right, we'll
Yeah,
just leave it to you.
we also think we're going to have to get an approval from the Old Kings Highway, and they might have
Some commentary as well.
a suggestion one way or the other.
Understood.
But as long as the park is the location, we can come up with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your diligent work.
It's going to be great.
It is.
Soon we'll have a Memorial Day parade down 6A.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is a discussion vote for the proposed, for the native land conservancy conservation restriction for Simpkins Bog. And I see some folks coming to the podium for us.
Good evening. My name is Kat Garofoli. I work for the Compact of Cape Cod Conservation Trusts. I'm here on behalf of the Native Land Conservancy as their representative in this really exciting project. As many of you know, the Native Land Conservancy has come before you with a similar project. It was preserving 10 acres next to the parcel in question today, and that was a couple of years ago, where they also granted a conservation restriction to the Yarmouth Conservation Trust. And now we're in phase 2, which would be protecting the 9.12 acres with an additional conservation restriction. This property is along 6A. It has a lot of very impactful benefits, including a variety of different wetland habitats. We have a protection of Zone 2 drinking water area. It will help maintain water quality heading out to the Chase Garden Creek watershed. This property is also recognized as ancestral homelands to the Wampanoags, and that is why the Native Land Conservancy felt compelled to protect this property. And so we come before you. We've gotten approval through the State Department of Conservation Services to proceed with this conservation restriction, and we're hoping to record it by the end of the year.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Madam Chair, I just want to make a full disclosure. This is an organization that I've had a longstanding involvement with, particularly in its founding. So I just want to disclose to the rest of the members of this board that I was very much involved in the founding of the Native Land Conservancy. I know historically there's been an interest in the work that I've done on behalf of the Wampanoag people, and so I think where I've had an experience or a role or some involvement with the organization, I think it's important just to disclose that. So I just wanted to make that abundantly clear. I support the request. I think it's a wonderful proposal.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
I just wondered if for our viewers, you could just give a sense of where in the town this was, so they could kind of visually locate it.
Absolutely. So this property is along Route 6A, right before Weir Road. It's tucked back behind the Martin Farm. So just before the House of Pizza.
Everyone will be able to place it now. Okay, thank you.
No, I think it's fabulous, thank you.
Thank you.
One of my favorite places to look at the deer. There are always deer there at dusk. I like to sit there and watch them. They're beautiful.
And the peepers.
Thank you for
You
your
always
work.
know when spring is coming.
I assume town council has
Yes.
reviewed the,
We're all set.
are there any other steps after this?
Yes, so after all of you sign and have that signature page notarized, we send that up to the state, and the Secretary of the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs will sign off on it, and once we get that back, we'll be able to record it as soon as we receive it.
Well, thank you to those that had the foresight to put this parcel aside.
The Native Land Conservancy really created a nice relationship with Jackie Rivero, who is the person that donated the land to them, which is, she genuinely felt like the organization had a lot to offer and wanted to give the land, back in a cultural sort of way. And so we're very fortunate that there are people out there that are true conservationists and want to protect land in perpetuity.
Well, many thanks to Jackie and Martin.
Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair? I'd like to move that we approve and authorize the execution of the conservation restriction for the Native Land Conservancy on the Simpkin Bogs 2.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's a wonderful project. We're glad to assist you with this one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And if we could just thank the people on our local community preservation and elsewhere who worked so hard to make this happen. Thank you.
Is there a signature page for us?
I think you signed it.
Okay.
It's in the,
Did.
It's in the packet. I think you signed it, Tracy.
Okay.
we would have ripped
You
it up.
usually do. But I think you were probably thinking ahead.
Oh, it's just that. Okay, all right, good.
Do we have present the people that we need to have here for the mortgage discharge request for?
No, we don't really need anyone here. I can
Okay.
explain it. What this issue is, it is a confirmatory discharge. So what that means, it's actually a reissuance of a mortgage discharge that was issued in 2004, and it was for a septic betterment loan. And what had happened is that the property owner failed to record the discharge, so the lien stayed on the property, then they passed away, and the property sold, and there's still a lien on the property. And so we vetted this through our town council's office and got all of the official, detailed records from the treasurer collector, and it requires a second vote to reissue so that this time it can be recorded. So this would be the second time we've issued a discharge for this purpose.
I see. Any questions from any of the select board?
It was paid off, and there's nothing due. there
Paid
was
off
nothing-
in
yeah.
full
Okay, I'd
in
make a motion
2000.
That we approve and sign the discharge of mortgage.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Now you have your second vote. Okay. Moving on, we have board and committee actions. Joyce?
Thank you. Madam Chair, I'd also like to note one that has come in from the Yarmouth Housing Authority, that they're changing, that they would like to acknowledge with thanks Marianne Walsh, who was their representative to the Community Preservation Committee, and they have appreciated her service. They now would like to appoint to the Community Preservation Committee Drew Kraus, who's a Housing Authority representative currently. I guess I just wanted to mention that because Marianne Walsh, because this originated with the Housing Authority, didn't seem to be there. But we're grateful for her years of service.
Madam Chair, point of order. I'm following the agenda, and the first thing item I see is resignations.
Since of the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Yeah.
We have to go through the list in order, Joyce. So you start up at the top with resignation, Zoning Board of Appeals.
She's not listed here, though.
Right.
She's not, I'm adding her because she's not listed.
Well, if she isn't on the agenda, I don't know that we can
Add
add
her to
her.
the next.
We could.
We can't say a voluntary thank you, even though she served on the Housing Authority?
You can take a thanks, but I thought you were asking for us to accept a resignation without it being on the agenda.
Oh,
We
I
can
see.
thank her, but.
Let us thank her for her years of service. Good point.
And we can
do
put-
this in a good way.
We can put this on the next meeting on December 19th.
Don't think we need to, because it's another authority that she resigns. This is
We have.
just a thanks.
Okay.
Okay, obviously, we've noted with large thanks the Zoning Board of Appeals resignation of Steve DeYoung. We'd also like to accept with thanks the resignation of Lauren Vila from the Recreation.
Excuse me, point of order, Madam Chair. Do we have to actually, we normally would vote
Vote on each
to
one?
accepting a resignation, yeah. So I just think we should just follow procedure and follow just order.
Okay.
Right. So.
I move that we accept the resignation of Steve DeYoung.
I second that.
Okay.
Thanks, of course.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
The next appointment is Michael Ahern.
No, we have Laura Villa.
I'd like to
Gotta do
make a
her
motion that we
separately.
accept the resignation of Lauren Villa.
Oh,
Second.
sorry.
Okay.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're on to appointments now, yes?
Yep.
I'd like to bring up the appointment of Michael Ahern to the Energy Committee for a 3-year appointment, January 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2027.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'd like to introduce the appointment of Paul Rooney as Municipal Hearing Officer. This dates are not given here, so I think we're to assume that he serves until replaced.
Is that a permanent or is it an annual? Bob?
Can't tell from the form.
Let's see. I think you should make it a time certain. An annual appointment would be fine. We could put it on. How do you usually, the 3-year appointment?
So that would be from January 1, 2025 to January 1, 2028, if it's 3 years?
And just a question, again, another sort of point of information. What is the nature of the hearing officer position? What hearings are being heard?
Oh, and there he is, man of the hour.
Timing is impeccable. Come on up, Paul.
Good, Paul, how are you?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm Mark Rills, Building Commissioner.
Lieutenant Matt Burris, Fire Department.
The hearing officer is required by state law for us to, enabling us to enforce certain sections of the state building code and state fire code. So we can't issue tickets on certain violations, which I have copies of here, unless we have a hearing officer, which gives the public the right to appeal. So that's their first right of appeal, then I think they go to Superior Court from there. Mr. Rooney was our choice. We had one for many years, and he just kind of fell off into the abyss. So I appreciate the opportunity to sit here, and this is actually a tool that was devised by the state. And as a result of the 2003 Station nightclub fire, they made a lot of changes to Chapter 304 of the Acts of 2004, enabling us to have a little bit more enforcement authority. So we have another tool for enforcement.
That's great. Thank you for answering my question, and thank you, Paul, for your interest in serving.
Do I have a motion?
I make a motion, we appoint Paul Rooney as the municipal hearing officer through 12/31, no.
2007.
2027.
Yep. Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Before we, I just want to note that this will also be very well appreciated by Old Kings Highway. So this is a good help aid to the Old Kings Highway as well.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Welcome, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you. It's nice to see you all.
Welcome
Good
back.
to see you,
you.
too.
Flynn, Cesargo, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I'd like to introduce our final item tonight in board and committee actions. It's for a reappointment to
No,
the
you
Old
have the community
No, you're number
preservation.
Rep-
Community
Community Preservation Committee?
I had done Drew Kraus before, but we didn't consider that valid.
No,
No.
we didn't vote.
Okay. I would like to introduce the appointment of Drew Kraus as the Housing Authority representative and Lee Hamilton as the Community Housing representative.
Through, do we know?
The dates?
The term.
The dates are not on the appointment form.
I think they're
A year?
one-year term through December 2025.
That makes sense.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Now the reappointments.
Okay, we just have one request for reappointment, and that's to the Old Kings Highway Committee, John Stewart as contractor architect. I think we need to have some discussion on this one.
Yes, if I may, Madam Chairman.
Okay, please.
So this had been sticking in my craw, if you will, for the last year because John Stewart, while he is a very respected and well-known character in the historic group, he is not a contractor professionally nor an architect. And it doesn't seem appropriate that the position is outlined to be one of those, and he is neither. And we have possibly come up with a good solution, which is to make a motion, I would make a motion to let John Stewart fill the position until we can find a contractor or architect as is required of us.
When we had discussion on this position for last year, my understanding was that he is a contractor.
He's a boat builder.
Well, that's a contractor.
That is a contractor.
I think we were, I spoke with the chair of our committee today, and we don't believe that that is the kind of contractor that is required. We are talking about homes and not boats in this capacity.
I mean, I think it's always historically been that. I'm just trying to figure out how he was appointed and why if you're not going to consider him, why we put him on here as a reappointment.
Not sure. That's why I was glad to deal
the
with it
discussion.
today,
Okay.
because it's been a problem. It's been inappropriate. I think it's all of the other positions are elected, and I do believe that that's an important part of the process. And so to have him appointed when he's not actually the character or the qualifications that he's being appointed for are not his.
Well, I will leave it up to the appointments co-chairs to handle that and come back with a recommendation.
Can we not move on the motion that I made?
Well, if we don't have a second,
If I don't understand, this is where I have a problem. If he's not qualified,
why would we be?
That's
I mean, you
fine with
can't-
me. We were trying to kind of give the interim option. He served for a year until we find an appropriate replacement. That was the motion we were considering But if you think it's just, it's black or white, he's not the appropriate person, and we should not approve him. That's fine.
Joyce?
Madam Chair, I think that was done when Richard Gegenworth was leaving, that he was left in place until a replacement could be found. So I think this seems like that situation.
No, actually, he is replacing the architect,
That's right, Rick Ventrone.
Rick Ventrone, who was in that position and resigned.
I'm aware of that, Madam Chair, but Richard Gegenworth was in the contractor architect position.
Prior to Richard
Prior
Ventrone.
to Richard Ventrone.
Yeah, for a while we were doing only Richards.
We did Richard, and then we did put in John. I'm going to suggest that you both go back, take a look at this, and come back, putting it on the agenda for our next meeting on December 19th, and coming in with a recommendation.
19th or 17th?
December, is it?
17th.
17th, I'm sorry. I
Okay.
got the wrong date.
From tonight.
Okay, we will do that then, and that ends all our board and committee actions for tonight.
Okay. Minutes of the November 19th, 2024 meeting?
I moved minutes.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 One abstention.
One abstention would be, Liz, you were not present for the meeting. It's generally the,
Not in my seat. I was present, but if I need to be on the board, okay.
okay. Upcoming agenda review.
Oh, we get a whole year. There's a whole lot.
Well, there is an addition on, for December 17, I met today with Jeff Colby, and we'd like to have a wastewater update on for the 17th.
That's a good idea.
That's a very good idea.
And also, if possible, an executive session discussion for real property negotiations prior to the meeting, and then in the public session, a wastewater update.
That's a great idea.
That is well received.
And we've got the
Madam Chair,
CIP.
I think we have this on the agenda for a future date, the Green Communities report. But if we needed to move that because of wastewater, I do see it could be postponed by a meeting if we needed a big session on wastewater.
I think we need to give ample time to wastewater
Okay.
on December 17th. That, and I think we need to make sure that we publicize that this is going to be a wastewater update for that meeting. It looks to me like our agenda for the 17th is set. Believe it or not, we then start looking at the new year. How about we just look at the month of January?
So reserve a little slot early for Green Communities, yes?
Green Communities is one of like 25 items that we need to find a spot for.
We have a number of items that need to be
Yeah,
found.
we've been kicking the can down the road on a dozen items.
Does that mean we need an extra meeting in January? I'm not sure.
No, we have meetings on January 7th and on January 14th listed. And that meets our requirement of 2 meetings per month, correct, Bob?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So we're looking at the 7th and the 14th, and as Tracy says, we do have a number of items that are on our list. The Mass DOT update, haven't we received something recently? Is there any way we can have them come and talk with us?
That was the Station Ave study, I think we got.
Yeah.
Right, that's on for January 7th.
It is on there. I'm sorry, I didn't see it there. Okay. And the Matakees Utilization Committee. How about if we take some of these items, though, off our list that we've been,
I just ask that you as chair, when you're setting the agenda, if there's room, that we start to try to move them up. That's how it's always worked in the past. Like, we shouldn't have to ask for them to be on there. They're there because we've already asked. So I would ask that you as chair try to
Put them on.
put them
Okay.
on when there is time available.
We will do that. Okay, does anyone have any other items that they want to add to the January 7th meeting?
Might I wonder out loud, communication plan update, I guess maybe first I should ask, what is that entail? What does that entail? That's on the
We
December.
had an update, I think, a couple of months ago where our IT team and the communications director comes in and discusses the updates to public outreach issues. It's always very helpful, and we continue to expand those.
Well, I would just note from my experience as doing all of my meet and greets with 100 some odd people over the campaign, the communications was a big subject of focus for the people that I spoke with. So maybe it has some weight because of that. And after our recent experience with the bog as well.
Well, one of the reasons why I like having this agenda item coming on regularly is because communication is always challenging in an era where we're a news desert and there's very little coverage of news anymore on Cape Cod and in Yarmouth. The burden literally falls on us.
That's right.
To find a way to get good information out. And you're right, if you followed town meeting, clearly there's a lot of misinformation and fake news that's out there. And literally, we're having a discussion about a topic in which you have groups of people working from a different set of facts. And so that's a problem. So it's incumbent on us as a board to periodically engage with our communication staff and find ways to make sure that, find better ways. We always have to be looking for improvements to our overall system. That's the reality of it. And, so by periodically getting our communications team before us to update us on what they're doing, what new initiatives they might have, to get feedback from the board, I think is incredibly helpful. So I'm insistent that this item be on our agenda at least once every 6 months.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking, were we talking about prioritizing anything or not, I
Well,
guess?
see, that's the problem with it.
I see.
The problem is, we have the staff and the plans in place. It's we aren't involved in the micromanaging of what they choose to put out. That's up to staff. And I think, so I think that I've heard their plan. Their plan's good. They're utilizing all the platforms. The question is, how much saturation, who's making the decisions as to what's getting put out, how often it's getting put out. Those are more administrative, I think, issues that, perhaps we can give more direction on, but in terms of the details of it, we're not here to, we're here to set policy. We're not
Micromanage.
here to
Yeah.
manage what staff is doing. So, while we may not agree with it, that's, I think, when we talk about our communications plan, I think we have to perhaps maybe better identify our expectations and hope that it's implemented. It's not, to me, it's not the communications plan that we have that's an issue. I think that they're doing a great job of putting things out. It's not on them, but it's really a decision from administration of what they're putting out, how often, and when.
And how,
Right, so,
platform.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that there's always room for improvement. I mean, I would argue, obviously, I'm not sure we should be having this discussion without it being an agenda item.
I don't
but
know either.
There's a fairly long list of things I'd like to see improvement on, and I'm anxious to see what they're working on, what
Right.
they're doing. Because they've told us when they presented the last plan that they're going to be new initiatives and new things that they're working on, so.
I look forward to hearing it.
Let's hear what they're up to, what they're working on, and to the extent that we as a board have some initiatives and ideas that they should be thinking about, let's let them work on those and then come back in 6 months and let us know how they're doing.
So we'll kick off the year on January 7th with hearing how communication is going.
Start with
Bob.
just following what's on TV, Channel 8, right? Is there enough do you think there's enough content? We can, each one of us can do our own assessment of what we believe
Right.
is strong and weak in terms of our overall communication.
Bring that to January 7th.
Exactly, and you
Okay,
bring
I
that
like
to the meeting.
Sounds marvelous.
Because they want feedback. Lori wants to hear from us. Paul wants to hear from us.
A bottle bill implementation would have been a great thing throughout the last 6 months. Or the
Plastics.
Plastics.
Right.
reductions, yes. I mean, we learned that yesterday, that it was,
Well, we also learned
Surprise.
that we were supposed to be, some people thought we were supposed to be doing something, you know.
So I'm adding that to, just as a newbie, adding it to my agenda?
So we'll be putting it on January 7th.
Right, okay.
And just to follow up on what Mark just said, I think sometimes everything will be assumed to be something we ought to be doing if we're not clearly pointing it in a different direction.
Well, you know, I think on some of these things, particularly on communications, I hear the same thing in town.
Yeah.
Communications.
Yeah.
What are we doing? How can we? And the thing is it seems like the news desert is getting worse.
Yeah,
not better.
it is.
Yeah, there's no.
Sorry, it's a little bit more of a discussion than it should be.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
guess.
So-
Sorry.
Why don't we hold
So
this
that's
then?
the reason why some of us really want to get it to keep it on the agenda.
So I think we've got it on the agenda for January 7th. Hold those thoughts, and we'll bring them to that meeting, and we'll publicize that that's coming up. So people will have an opportunity.
And can I also say, one of the reasons why I think the corridor study is very helpful with Station Ave is because there's some expectation that we as a board need to have something to say about whether or not a new school is to be considered and studied on Station Ave. And I think, quite frankly, some of us are already very concerned about the traffic volumes on Station Ave. And so I think if we're going to have something to say on that topic, it might be helpful to get some better information in terms of just how bad the traffic situation is and what kind of improvements are necessary. And I've mentioned this before, that I do think that if there is a study looking at the corridor, what does it look like with another, whatever it is the school committee's thinking about, it'd be nice to have that factored into their studies and get some analysis on that as well. So the timing for that couldn't be any better.
So we'll be putting that on the January 7th agenda as well. At least give them some guidance as to what we feel they should include in their study regarding the new schools and so forth.
The other item that I think I would recommend that we add to the list is a review of our goals and just a review with the administrator on our goals and progress on goals, right? I mean, we got our goals, we printed out, and then we might want to just review the goals and how we're doing.
I think we need an update on the budget. I think we need to start looking at the budget for the coming year. Bob, what's the possibility of our being able to do that at January 7?
We need a
Budget meeting schedule, actually.
budget meeting, January 7 or the 14th, one of those two dates, a budget workshop session.
So we're
Sure,
going to add it on January 7th then. I
You wanna
think the
do it
sooner we
January
get
7th?
working on it, the better.
Okey-doke.
Well, we also need to work on a budget meeting schedule. I think that part of the conversation that I would recommend the chair have with the administrator is, what are the other budget meetings? You know, I can recall serving on this board where we spent a good chunk of January and February just getting budget discussions and hearing from the departments and going over specifics. So I'm expecting that at some point we'll be getting that, so.
Well, for information to the board, I happen to be meeting with the chairman of the Finance Committee tomorrow morning to talk exactly about that, putting together a schedule for the budget.
Okay, well then,
working with Bob.
I'm assuming Bob's going to be in
Yeah.
that meeting. Okay, well, that's good.
Bob will be part of that.
Good.
I think that it might be in our best interest to have a really strong working relationship with the Finance Committee for this particular budget. And to have a little more involvement by the Finance Committee than we have had in the past. Well, with the communication plan update, the transportation corridor, and our budget and review of our goals, I believe we have a full agenda for the 7th.
Very good.
So we're set. If there are suggestions for the January 14th, we can hold those for our next meeting, unless anyone has anything in particular that they want to speak about today.
We might want to do the goals on the 14th. I'm just looking at, some of these items might take a long time for the 7th. Especially when you get the budget workshop and everything going.
We certainly don't want to skimp on that, so, fine, we'll move the bold goals to January 14th. Are there any individual items that anyone wants to bring up today?
For me, I'd like to congratulate Liz on her election and to join with all my colleagues in welcoming her to the board. And we look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Mark.
That's what I was going to say.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Welcome, Liz.
Thank you, Dorcas.
Okay, any other items for today?
No, ma'am.
I'll accept a motion for the consent agenda.
So moved. Can I ask that we hold, or we take out the 2025 amusement license from the consent agenda and move the rest of it? Please.
Okay,
So, because that's item B, right? That's the one you want held?
The 2025 annual amusement license renewal list, if we could just remove that from the consent agenda.
and that's currently item,
So I will move the consent agenda items A, C, D, E, and F, and G.
Okay, so it's,
okay. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay.
Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Okay. Discussion on approval of the 2025 annual alcohol and other annual license renewals. Tracy?
Well, we just moved everything, but the
Except B.
That.
Right,
the amusement license, so if somebody else, I need to abstain from that piece, so that's why I did that.
bingo.
Oh, okay.
So I'll move to approve item number B on the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Abstain? We have one abstention. And 4 in favor. Town administrator updates.
I do have a few items I wanted to bring the board up to speed on. First, we talked about the budget workshop session on January 7th. That'll be very timely. Right now, our budget process is ongoing. It's, of course, a tremendously dense process. It takes a great deal of time. I appreciate everyone's, patience during this time. It's a little bit of an overwhelming process, but we're ongoing with that process. We're into it maybe second week or so, meeting with every single department, scouring all the budgets. And I do want to acknowledge our finance director, Jen Mullen. She's doing a great job, and I've got her involved with me directly, also bringing in, some strong representation with the Finance Committee in those meetings. So we'll be ready. I'll have a budget recommendation by the end of this month. We'll have all of that material too, and then we'll start with the budget workshop sessions. And, we should probably talk about, in recent years, we've gone away from having all of the budget hearings in front of the select board. We review the entire budget and then maybe a couple of the select bigger departments. But you'll have to decide whether you want to spend, your time going over every budget. Usually the process is we have the finance committee meets with every single department, just like I do, and having a third series of hearings in front of the select board, it's optional for you, but that's something that we've been trying to get a little bit away from. It creates that triple budget review. It's something that we've been trying to avoid. So I think, maybe having those discussions with the finance committee, taking a look at the overall budget and deciding who you want to meet with,
The problem is that the problem is with that is, I think the public needs to get the questions. I mean, there was a point in time where not only did we meet with all of the departments, we also had a pre-town meeting where we would go over the entire budget with all the department heads, because it had less confusion at town meeting because we had all of it in public.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I just, I think the idea that we do a detailed review of every single budget independently, I think, the best thing to do is start with the overall budget workshop, and we'll go right through every line item, and I think we'll try to have it for that, even that, start-off meeting. We'll have all of the departments here and see what questions, and then you can decide how many of them you want to have separate hearings on.
Well, that's exactly what we did last year. We did that last year. We had an overview, big picture discussion. We went through a number of items, and then we decided as a group that there were some departments that we needed to get before us to go over in detail. So after we did that, we had a more definitive set of meetings with departments. And I think I tend to err on the side of doing more than less. It's like at town meeting, I will insist again that we provide more information than less, than trying to abbreviate everything. I think we owe it to the voters to explain in detail and as much transparency as possible what we're doing with their money. And I know some people like to breeze through these things, but from my point of view, I think it's our obligation to make sure that our voters have access to as much information as possible. And if some folks are, tired of hearing us going over budgets with departments, well, that's tough. They can just change the channel, or go to Zoom, or go to Netflix, or whatever. But I just think that there's a base. I thought the process that we had last year was good, and I think we should continue it.
Good. So that's the game plan. Perfect. So budget process we're working on, and again, the rest of this week and next week we'll be continuing those budget meetings. I have an update for you on the Mass School Building Authority. We did just receive news that it looks as if the MSBA wants to accept the ME Small School for our feasibility study. I received today a note from the superintendent of schools to that effect, and there's a Zoom meeting on Friday to get more detailed information with the SBA. So I'll get that information and bring it back to the board at your next meeting, and we'll go from there. But that was a big piece of news.
I have a question on that, Madam Chair. Do we have any further intelligence that they're going to insist on a sort of preordained outcome on this, or do we think that there's a real interest in looking at options?
It depends how cynical of an answer that you want. I think let's just look at this situation very clearly, okay? We've all dealt with, you have a lot of experience with the SBA. I also have a lot of experience dealing with the state agency over many, many years. I will say, it has been my personal experience, is that the Mass School Building Authority is extremely opinionated as to what they feel would be beneficial. And my feeling is that sometimes they overstep their boundaries in terms of they're an agency that is there to distribute these state funds to assist the local municipalities, and that it is the decision of the local municipalities of what type of school is most appropriate for that jurisdiction. the MSBA will come in and try to throw their weight around. I do not feel that they have the authority to do that, but they will express their opinions in no uncertain terms. They tend to be very, I guess the executive director, they're almost larger, than life. The figures that they come in and express like, well, you need to fall in line. And I don't feel that that's the case. So I think what you can expect is you can expect the Mass School Building Authority to make every attempt to try to get the biggest school out of this jurisdiction that they can talk you into getting. But I think when we go into this process, we need to understand that, and I think what the most important thing to do is for the local officials, and now this is the select board and the school committee members, to have these discussions first, before we start this feasibility study, that says, look, we know that the school building authority will try to get us to build the biggest school we can, but our feelings are that we don't want to take on another $150 million project right now. But I think, these things, we should talk about. I do not feel as if this agency has the authority to direct you and say, that they're not going to fund you unless you go a big, huge school. I think the idea is we agreed, right, that we would look on a number of options at the consolidation. And I think that that's all that they can insist, that we include that on our list. But as far as the decision, I think that's why we need to communicate with the school committee folks beforehand, so that everyone knows going into it that, look, we expect the SBA to try to manipulate us into a bigger school than we think that we should have. So I hope that kind of covers that issue. It is one that the community has to have leadership. And we have to get together with school and town and be able to control the process, because a lot of times that's what happens, is the school and the town don't communicate well. The SBA comes in, talks to them independently, and then pushes you into a direction.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm glad you're saying that, because that's essentially what happened last time. And I think what you're hearing is we don't want to go through that again. Had we been on top of the feasibility study, had we been on top of some other things, I think, and I'm glad you're engaged in this, because, in hindsight, we probably should have been more engaged before. But here we are. So they do have predetermined conclusions. They do have, and I think we have to be, like you said, we have to be in tandem with the school committee. But we're also going to have to be pretty aggressive with them and make it very clear with our legislators that we have certain expectations on the outcomes of this. We want a real study, not something that's preordained from the very beginning, and then we find something shoved down our throats. And the legislators need to make that very clear as well. It's not only just us, but they need to be part of this conversation, because they're going to be the ones that are going to be in the best position to help us get what we want, because they'll listen to them. I mean, that's been pretty obvious. So rather than us asking them to do almost the impossible at the last minute, let's make sure that they're in on this discussion and they're aware of where we want to go with this. So I guess the answer is yes, they do have a predetermined position. So we need to weigh in.
Strong opinions. Yes.
We definitely need to weigh in. So when is this going to be on our agenda next, did you say?
I don't know. It depends on, the meeting with the SBA is on Friday. It's a Zoom meeting. I'm going to get the link, if somebody wants to sit in with me on that, I'm more than happy to have the company. But like I say, I just found out about the meeting today, and I think it's great news. But like I say, with any opportunity like that, it's a huge responsibility, and it is a challenge. Working with these things. I mean, some communities move ahead and do their feasibility on their own, right? So they don't have, that old, but I've done it, with SBA, and I think that the key is communication with our colleagues in the school. And the only thing I can tell you from my end, I've been communicating very strongly with the superintendent of schools on this, and I feel that we're on, the same page. We'd like to have those resources here to assist us in whatever decision is made, but the idea of, building this giant regional school is, nothing that we want to bite off right now, no matter whose opinion that it would be good to look at.
Well,
May I ask a question, Madam Chairman?
Sure.
So how does Dennis get pulled into this as well? Town of Dennis?
From
When you're saying that we need to be proactive, pull ourselves together with the school committee, and Dennis as well? No?
The idea is that they would look at consolidating the Station Avenue Elementary School with the Margaret E. Small School and creating one mega school.
Right.
So that would be the big issue. And so it's the school committee.
But we entrust the school committee to make sure that Dennis is actively engaged in this as well.
Well, we want to participate in this process.
Right.
Have the select board representation working with the schools.
this is a Yarmouth school, so when we entered into the
It's
feasibility.
not DY, Dennis Yarmouth Regional?
It's a Yarmouth Elementary School. Dennis has their elementary school at Baker.
Very good. That's my misunderstanding. Okay.
And I also want to make sure that we have their understanding that we can be looking at alternative buildings that already exist in town before we look at building a multi-million-dollar structure. I mean, we have Lawrence MacArthur School that's sitting over there that was an elementary school. And whatever we would have to do to arrange to be able to use, for instance, that location versus our commitments to other agencies, I think we need to really look at that. I mean, why would we be going out and spending millions if we already have an elementary school in our town that isn't being used by the school?
Yeah, no, we've had this conversation before. Yeah, and that's the thing is that there, as when you Liz, when you look at the budget numbers and look at the debt and look at some of the projections, I mean, we're going to be using so much debt with wastewater.
Right,
that
understood.
our ability to finance other new buildings is going to be very challenged.
Understood.
New school facilities, new library, this talk about a police, I mean, look at all the projects that are sort of in the queue. And financially, it's just devastating to the town. So to be forced into building something that's well in excess of what we can afford or what we maybe even in terms of what we need, when, as Dorcas said, we've got other buildings and properties here that could be maybe repurposed. And one has to even ask the question, I mean, we have a middle school that we have a reuse committee looking at. I mean, how does this conversation fit into that, right? So I think as the years going on and the taxes continue to go up, I think the voters have every right to expect from us a penny pincher approach.
I agree.
To our finances, and I think the state needs to understand that, we're going to fight tooth and nail on behalf of the taxpayers of the town of Yarmouth to make sure that we're prudent and very fiscally responsible in terms of how we spend our money. So this whole thing is just scary to me, and the idea that here we are, it's going to be like here we go again, where the state and others sort of run off on their own.
That's one of the things I think that we need to do is meet with the school committee as soon as possible. I think we need to have a joint meeting. I've been saying that for a while for a lot of issues, but, if we're accepted into this and we move forward, I think that we definitely all need to be on the same page.
Do it right away.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd like to participate Friday.
It's great.
I'll get together with you. There's a link there. And my last item, I just wanted to let folks know, this kind of ties into with the communication thing. We've got the whole team gearing up on our Route 28 wastewater work is ramping up over the next several weeks. They'll be having, more details, more detours, and we're working with the website, with the Facebook, with the the ways with the business community, getting our new ombudsman person working to go up and down the street. But so there's a lot ramping up on the wastewater construction and the communication pieces surrounding it. So look for those, and if, any feedback that you get, ideas, suggestions, or if there's people that, have issues or concerns, we want to work with them directly. So, but I just wanted to let folks know, we're going to be seeing a little bit of a ramp up with some additional detours as the construction goes. And, I think this is the time of the year to try to get as much done, so when it gets to be the spring, it's not another mad dash. But we'll also be able to talk about that next week a little bit when we have our wastewater update.
Very good.
That's it for tonight.
Okay.
I just have one last item for the town administrator. I know that on Monday it was his birthday, so I just want to make sure that we can all wish Bob a happy birthday. And thanks for spending your birthday with us.
Thank you very much. Wouldn't want to
Happy
anywhere
birthday,
else.
Bob. What a birthday present we gave you, too.
Just so I'm a little clearer on, when you are talking about going to meet with the select board with Tracy and yourself, is that something that we would all know that there's a meeting and a date on the select board?
Well, what I know is that the superintendent of schools got a call from the SBA, and they've indicated that they are leaning towards accepting. This is an application. We had a previous meeting with the school department where it was authorized to make this application. So we made the application, and then so the SBA has set up a Zoom call with the school officials for Friday. The superintendent invited me, and I indicated it's not a posted meeting of the select board. But
No,
if you
I
guys
guess
wanna
what I
keep
was
that-
talking about is you're meeting Tracy and yourself with the school board, with the school committee.
No.
Is that separate?
No, the school committee is what we're going to take
Well,
and
I
do.
asked that we have a joint meeting, which would be both full boards.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, it would be full.
That'll be right here.
And how would I know about it? That's what I'm asking.
That'll be our,
We
it'll be a
posted
meeting.
on our agenda.
Very good.
Posted on the agenda, yeah. It'll be at a select board meeting.
Oh, okay.
So we'll have that.
Thank you.
And we won't have any meetings that you don't know about. And, that's one thing that we're really good about, that is we try to keep the board members informed totally about all, major meetings. And when members of the Board of Selectmen or Select Board have these meetings, we like to put them on an agenda at a select board meeting.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And work hard at doing that.
Yeah, and as far as I'm concerned, one of the reasons why it's helpful to have these assignments is, like, I know that now Tracy is the DY person. So if there's school stuff going on, I'm going to be looking to her. And all I care about is if there's a call with the state and it's about the schools, if she's on it, I'm fine. And then we'll get a report when it's time. So that's the value of having these assignments. As a member of the Affordable Housing Trust, there's a lot of stuff going on that I'll just get information about. But when there's something that I think the board needs to be aware of, I mean, it's incumbent on me to share that with the board, to let you, as an entire board, know what's going on that score. There are lots of interesting things going on, and that's one of the reasons why we just divide up all the work like this.
Speaking of which, on affordable housing, has there been any information coming out about Forest Road?
I'm not aware of anything.
No.
There's
It's still, they filed with the state, as I understand it. Is that correct, Bob?
I don't know what any new filings. They've been working with the state for 2 years now, and I haven't seen anything new. But the one thing that I would mention is that now that there is the Matakees Utilization Committee, I've been outreached, and we have on the Affordable Housing Trust to have a joint meeting of the local housing agencies to determine if it's feasible to put together a housing component for consideration at the Matakees property. And now, one of the things that we have to talk about,
I think that's one of many things, yeah.
do we outreach the Housing Authority? And, we've sort of been almost at odds with them over the disagreements over the Forest Road property, but, do we pull them in and start talking about, what their intentions are and whether there's feasibility of doing something? Is there a better spot? Is Matakee's worth considering? Is it a potential alternative? All of these issues, they're going to have to come to a head. We can't, let them just sit out there forever. And I'm all in favor of bringing it to a head as long as, it's something that the select board wants to do.
If I may, Madam Chairman. I met with Mary Wiggins as part of my due diligence, and after reading the housing production plan, and I was amazed at that body of work. It's really something. And she's a stellar individual. What a great staff person to have. And I would agree that I think it would be good to bring her and the housing group in, because, I think it's working together is going to be more advantageous.
Well, related to that, I read the memo that Bill put together, sort of outlining the overall approach in terms of the Matakee School reuse. And I'm very comfortable with that, because there have been questions about the committee and should some others be added on to it and whatever. And I would highly recommend looking at that closely, because Bill's sort of laying out a game plan in terms of how to look at this project. And one component of it is to ask individual groups to come in with their ideas, their recommendations, their thoughts about what could potentially be done there.
Can you forward that to me, Mark? Would that be appropriate?
Well, absolutely. I thought everyone had it anyways. And remember this, I think one of the reasons to kind of bring it up is that this is coming up on the agenda very soon. And it's almost, I think we need a little direction on, is it okay to, start using our influence to try to guide some of these groups, like the Housing Authority, to potential success. Is that possible? Is that something that we want to do? Is that something that we want to leverage this whole utilization framework to try to get those discussions rolling? Just something to think about.
I believe that.
So the memo lays out the committee framework and approach.
Okay, great.
And it's generated some discussion.
Surprise. Great.
Does anyone have any other items for this evening?
No, Madam Chair, I'd move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.